Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon, works for Gibson.
Hey everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are delighted to have you. We've got a great show. Today we're also joined by our good friend
Rob Chafe, Mad Cow Amplification.
Right, he keeps coming back. We're liking this.
Raging Rob. We love it.
Raging Rob.
That would be a great segment. Oh my goodness.
Raging
Oh,
Rob.
well, that's pretty much his.
Whoa,
Yeah, that's pretty
whoa.
much
I
his
know, that's
Instagram
your
feed.
MO.
Would
but,
you actually just let me?
probably.
Okay. Here we go.
We'll work on that. We'll go to the.
Let's put that in development.
Yeah, we'll run that through the C-suite and see what happens.
Okay.
Tonight we've got a very special guest. Special guest. Who are you?
Michael King, Cowbrand Design.
Right on.
Guitars.
Cowbrand Design. Now, where can people go see what you do while they're listening?
You can either go to my website, which is cowbranddesign.com, or my Instagram, which is pretty much it's electro strings.
Electro stringed.
Yeah, electro stringed ED. Yeah.
Yes. So, and I think if you look up Cowbrand, it will get you to electro stringed. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It will. There's
Good.
a link there.
Good. Well, we're excited to have you on. I think, you've been referenced a few times on the show. You are one of the few people that actually really do sort of every single part on the guitar.
Scoop to nuts.
And that's counting all the hardware and everything. So it's kind of exciting
crazy.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's artistry, man. You are an artiste.
It's kind of the foundation of me making guitars. It was if I was going to do guitars, that had to be part of it.
That's cool. Well, we're going to dig into that whole story in just a little bit. We're very excited to learn all about it because I think you're rather unique in the guitar industry. So
I would say so.
You did say so, Tony. Thank you for clarifying that. Oh, boy.
I concur.
Yes. All right. So we got a few now. Well, actually, Tanya, what do we do on the show?
Well, Todd, for those who may not have heard the show before,
That's right.
we like to talk about gear, specifically boutique gear. Even more specifically, we like to talk to the people that make the gear. And that's things like, in this case, guitars,
Yes.
amplifiers, pedals, accessories, all the good stuff.
That's right.
And occasionally,
Actually, that's what Jared's supposed to say. That's what he always says.
101s.
No,
We
that's
love
right. You say
101s.
that's
We
right to
love
everything. Say that's right.
Learning time. That's right.
yes, we
There you
have learning time.
Learning time.
with Jared.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's the stuff that we do. We get
Right.
the story behind the story from the movers and the shakers of the boutique gear industry.
Right. This isn't Sunday morning rock and roll radio throwback. But anyways,
I'm going to shout in and interrupt that I'm
yeah.
very excited about this episode because I've been looking at those pickups forever. And I'm very envious of that design. So let's continue on so we can get to that part.
The hell with the guitars.
Yeah.
We want to talk about the pickups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jared gently nudging us along. there.
Yes. Gentle Jared.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're glad that you're listening, everybody. If you're new, welcome. If you're coming back, glad you're back. All right. Got like I said, a few announcements we need to thank. Oh, that's right. Rode Mics for providing the Rodecaster Pro and the Procaster mics. They've been very good to us. We love this equipment, and they keep making amazing things.
Don't forget the roticulating arms.
Yeah, the roticulating arms. That is correct.
Thank you. You finally said it.
Trademark Pick Guardian.
Yeah.
Next, I'll get him to admit things are as flat as a crepe.
No.
That's right.
I did want to share, we got another great new listener DM, and I wanted to share that with you, or email, a message, if you will. This is from our new executive producer, Rick Calhoun. He said, Todd, I'm happy to be part of your Patreon supporters. Well, we are glad to have you.
Absolutely.
He says, my main gear of choice is in the guitars is Music Man Cutlass. I don't know that I'm familiar with that.
It's kind of like their take on a Strat.
Okay, that's why. And a Fender Tele and a Gibson 335. And his amps, he likes to play through the Fender Deluxe Reverb and Vox AC15.
Yummy.
Nice
And
amps,
his effects that he's running is the Wampler Ego, the Wampler Velvet Fuzz, Music Box Pedals Lila Drive, the Greer Lightspeed.
Ooh, that one's good.
Yeah, the Strymon Flint,
Yeah.
Brigadier, and Big Sky. Well, he's got quite
yeah.
quite the
That's
Strymon
the-
setup going there.
Stock and Strymon, yeah.
Yeah,
Boom.
right on. Says, I've been a big fan of the show for a very long time, and your show really has brought a lot of joy to my life. And thank you. That makes
And
me
that's
feel
why we
awesome.
do it.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I'm just here for the free booze.
Yeah, I feel like we could just sit down and enjoy some drinks together.
And that's true.
Honest.
That's what we want.
That-
That is what we want.
Yeah.
People, when they listen, to feel like we could go sit down, grab a beer together, and just
I mean,
chit-chat.
we talk about this all the time, but honestly, if you're listening, I hope you honestly feel like you can walk into the room and you say, "Oh, there's my well-worn spot right next to the armrest on the old ratty tatty sofa, where your indent has been." That's what I want you to feel like, You guys are all nodding. Okay, whatever. That's truly, honestly, I should have started supporting you guys a long time ago. Well, be that as it may, we're glad that you're supporting us now. It really, truly helps us out, and we're grateful for you and all of our Patreon supporters.
Our mantra here is better late than never.
Is it?
One of them.
It is now. All right.
That works with everything. Really.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get on with what's going on in our music world this week. Gentlemen, Tony's going to kick us off, and then we want to hear from our friend Michael King.
Well, Todd, this week, something very, very special. Chance of a lifetime. I'm coming to work for Gibson. No.
Liar.
And Jared just quit.
Yeah. That was well played.
I did not.
Nice job.
So, probably, I don't know how many episodes ago, we talked about my having the chance to play a couple of late 40s Gibson arch tops. Through whatever, knocking on wood and whatever else, I was able to purchase a 1948 Gibson Super 300. And at the time, my friend Phil, who has the fret shop repair place here in town, had both a late 40s Super 300 and a Super 400. And I, at the time, wasn't even aware that there was such an animal as a Super 300. Obviously, I knew Super
That's
4s.
hard to imagine because you know pretty much everything about guitars.
So here's the story. They made a total of 215 of these
Whoa.
guitars in the late 40s, and then they did some cutaway ones in the 50s. So there's not very many of these out there. The Super 300 was basically a less expensive version of the Super 400, which kind of was, with the L5 and a couple of other models, was Gibson's top of the line. So the main difference is you got less fancy maple back and sides, less ornamentation, nickel hardware instead of gold, and but by and large they're essentially the same guitar.
Womp womp.
Okay.
Did you? If you give me the serial number, I can possibly find that in the shipping ledger, unless they already looked it up.
I have the number. It's an FON number, so it's from it's 1948 based on that. But
Yeah, I could look up.
But yeah, you can make a picture of it for me.
I thought you said it was a
in the shipping ledger.
No, 48.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Late 40s.
Right.
But yeah, there's
it easy.
at the time
Jeez.
Gibson used a different type of serialization number. They called them FON numbers. I think it stands for file order number or something like that. But It's a letter with usually 4 digits that's written on the label.
Those ledgers go back really far, man.
Yeah, except for the late 50s ones that are missing in action.
There are, and including mine.
Yeah.
My
Joe Bonamassa buy that?
J45.
No, that was
that was a joke. That was
our one of our would you rather.
That's right.
So anyhow, long story even longer. I got the deal of a lifetime on a guitar that I will probably never ever see again. I mean, these come to market very rarely. The sad thing is the Super 300s are worth about half of what a Super 400 is because everybody wants Super 400s. But I like the way that this one played and sounded, and so I'm just kind of beside myself right now. It needs a little bit of work. It's going to need a pick guard. But it's a super clean.
I know
model.
a guy.
I know a guy that makes pick guards.
All parts?
But there's a little bit. I wouldn't do that to you. Wouldn't do that to myself. No, they do a fine job too. But yeah, it's right now getting there's some gluing that needed to be done, and once that's done, it's ready to go.
Cool.
What color?
It's a dark sunburst.
Dark sunburst. Nice.
Yeah, they only made one kind, and it's an on-cutaway, so that makes it a little less desirable. Everybody wants the cutaway Super 4s, but
So make sure you go look at, what is this thing called again? A Super
300.
A Super 300. Go look up
what
the
I'm doing
Super
right
300.
Nice looking guitar, man. Actually, except for the cutaway thing, I hear you there, but I like the sunburst. I like like you said, a little more plain look of the 300.
I do too.
And the nickel, man. I'm not a fan of gold.
Gold hardware. I have a couple of guitars that have gold hardware.
Doesn't stay gold,
No,
No, it
especially
doesn't,
something
Pony Boy.
that's 75 years old.
Come on. I mean, seriously? It doesn't stay gold? I threw a Pony Boy in there. Nothing?
Nope.
Oh,
No,
man.
you lost.
We're not going to
us.
encourage this
awful.
behavior.
Yeah.
Michael, you were laughing. I could hear you.
Yeah, I caught a little of that.
So, in a nutshell, that's my music world this
Nice.
week. An exciting week. Probably won't be anyone better than this
Wow.
ever.
Cashed in some retirement to buy a guitar.
That's fantastic.
No, it's the no.
No, I didn't do that. All right. Well, Michael, what's going on in your music world this week?
Just more building, and actually working on a new pickup design that I'm pretty excited about.
Ooh,
right
Since
on.
you mentioned pickups for Vernon Reed, the guitarist for Living Color.
Color, yes.
Yeah, building a guitar for him right now. Yeah,
Very cool.
I'm pretty excited about it.
That's super exciting.
I had an experience or a chance to in New York. They would do at Christmas time. It was called the Downtown Messiah. So they had all of these people doing, basically Handel's Messiah, only rock style. And Vernon Reed was a guitar player for it. David Johansen from New York Dolls was there. Marshall Crenshaw. And this is in this little tiny, I think it was at the Blue Note. And it was a very small venue. I was sitting, had folding chairs set up at the edge of an aisle. And at one point I look over and Vernon Reed is standing like right next to me. It was just like, it was just like a surreal moment. And then David Joe came out a little bit, they were watching the other performers.
Yeah.
Next to me. It was just a crazy thing. Only in New York.
I had a similar situation with that. It's been years ago. It was back in their heyday, actually. I was working in a music store as a repairman, and this guy comes in the store, and he's with this girl, and I just looked up at him, and I was like, "You're Corey Glover." He's like, "Yeah," and it just turned. They were playing a show here. And he had a friend that worked at a very popular restaurant that was right down the street from our music store. And he had just come to have lunch with her during the day. They were actually touring with the Rolling Stones, believe it or not. It was like their first tour.
Wow.
And I just started talking to him, and I had in the back a couple of bodies, solid bodies, that I was in the process of building. And I was telling him I made guitars. He goes, "Oh, you got to meet our guitar player. Have you ever heard of him? It's Vernon Reed." I'm like, "Wow." I'm thinking I know you. So of course I know Vernon Reed. Right. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to meet him." So he goes, "Well, just let me take these two bodies with me." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I let him take them. And he left me with a couple of backstage passes and some tickets, and I went to the show. It was
that's so
it was
cool.
kind of interesting. And after the show, you had to have to wait until everybody left, and then they gave us these stickers. We put them on, and they came walking out, and Ronnie comes walking out with these bodies, and he's looking around. And he goes, well, who's the guy with these bodies? And Corey says, that's him. And he comes over and start talking to him. We just start talking shop. We wound up talking shop for like an hour.
Wow. Fast
Forward to today, or now, so to speak, and he just saw my work on somebody had posted some of my work, and he saw it, and he just frantically tried to get in touch with me. And the first couple of times I just kind of like, it's just Werner. You're getting these direct messages. And then finally it turned out to be him. So, we got in a phone conversation. I told him about the story. He goes, no, I don't remember that. I said, yeah, I showed you some guitar bodies before. You don't remember? Nah. Well, I totally understood.
That's funny.
No way.
Yeah.
I never met those guys. However, just hearing the isolated track on Cult of Personality, the guitar solo, that was a treat in itself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
he's something else.
When you can, well, if you listen closely, you can actually hear the guitar picking on the string. Besides of it coming out of the amp, you actually.
Right.
Well, you're better looking string. What's wrong with you, sissy? You string.
And he has such an eclectic picking.
That was Todd
style
picking
too.
on a string.
He was pretty good. That was pretty awesome. But yeah, that's really exciting, man. Is it going to be kind of like a noiseless humbucker, or just something like you're doing now?
It's as noiseless as I can make it. Really, what I was after, because with my discussions with him, the thing was not to make, obviously, what he already has. So someone's, you're going to make a guitar for Vernon. Well, I guess it's going to be like this heavy metal thing or whatever. And it's really not that at all. It's a little different in that how can I put this? It's more parlorish. I call my guitars parlor guitars. I don't like to call them 3/4 or anything like that. I just call them parlor guitars because they're slightly smaller than a regular sized guitar. But they have a scale that I consider to be as normal as any other scale. Most scales are, 25 and a half, 24 and 3/4 or whatever. And mine is a 23 and a half inch scale length, but the ES350, the Birdland, some Dan Electros are all that scale. So I just call it that scale.
Yeah.
Cool.
And with this guitar, one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to include a tool that he uses quite a bit, which is the ability to do MIDI with it. So I decided, he came at me, he was like, I would like to have one of your parlor electrics, how you do it. In other words, don't make me what I already have. Don't make me a heavy metal guitar. It doesn't need a whammy bar or anything like that. He goes, I got plenty of that, but I want tools for different things. And his thing was, he wanted it for composition, but he was really interested in the size. He was really interested in my design. He was interested in my pickups, but one thing that I asked if I could include was the MIDI part. He didn't mention that. I just kind of said, well, I got to include that too, because I know that's a huge part of what you do both on stage and just when you're writing. And he's got like this crazy, I call it the hive, that he writes in at his home. And part of it, it's MIDI. I think the first the first record that I ever heard him on, a lot of people are familiar with this record. It's a record that he recorded with Bill Frisell back in the early 80s, I think. It's called Smash and Scatteration. And it's all the very earliest MIDI, the original hexaphonic pickups, Roland had just come out with. And he's actually still uses one of those, in conjunction with some newer stuff. But that's the only thing that I really was like, I got to add this to it. And it's not something that I've ever put on any of my other guitars, but because of how our bridge and all that's designed, it took a little bit of, reworking a few things. And after that, I decided that I did want more aggressive pickup in the bridge than I normally do on my guitars. So that kind of led to me putting that extra effort into designing the new pickup for his guitar. But it still had to aesthetically fit with, my look still. So that, it took some, a little bit of work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think once you have Vernon's done, you'll probably be building one for Bill too. I love it. He is. Boy, imagine being in a room with those two. Wow.
Yeah, I loved it. That's the thing. I've loved both of their playing for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Bill Frisell. And funny enough, out of all the Bill Frisell stuff that I have, my favorite is the CD that he did called Nashville, like early 2000. And it's it's got some great Nashville players on it, like Jerry Douglas and what's her name, the fiddle player. I forgot her name, but she's just, she's incredible. Everybody on the album is incredible. He went and got all these really just kind of converted me, so to speak. He just proved that you can just take all these styles and put them in the same room and still get amazing music, and it's not just slanted one way and everybody's trying to own up to that, even though they're, from a kind of a different universe, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, Bill Frisell and Vernon are two of my favorites, so it would be a complete honor to have Bill for both of them.
Wow, that is amazing.
Well, let me know once you have it done. I'll shoot you over Bill's contact info. He's a good.
That would be cool.
He's a great guy, and I've done a couple of projects for him, and
wow,
he's he literally the nicest. He is so humble.
Next to me.
Well, next to Todd, he's the nicest person that I know. No,
wow.
in the music biz, just super cool, super laid back, and we've had conversations, for extended periods.
Wow,
it's really cool. And if anybody out there doesn't know who we're talking about, there's a really really good documentary that was out a year or two ago.
How would you characterize Bill Frisell for those who don't know who he is?
I guess pigeonholed wise, he's a jazz player, but he has done so much more than just jazz.
Isn't he really progressive?
He is. He's extremely. Yeah. You just have to check it out and check out the documentary first. It's a fantastic documentary. It gives you pretty much everything you need to know for a base coat of Bill Frisell. But,
all right.
But he's probably got 20, 30 albums for now.
That's his new album, actually, a base coat of Bill Frisell.
That's pretty good.
All right. Thank you, Michael. That was a good share. We appreciate that.
We kind of took a tangent off of there.
That's all good. It's all learning and stuff. Learn about Vernon.
Learning about Vernon.
Rob, how about yourself?
Oh, nothing exciting. I think
now, that is... What we're trying to do is hold people's interest.
Okay, well, let me actually. I think it was last time I was here. I talked about this, and I just got an email today from New Sensor, who supplies Tungsol, Mullard, Sovtek EH tubes, and I placed a big order. I don't know, about 3-4 weeks ago, because if people aren't already aware, there's some tube shortage, supply problems happening. And so I placed an order maybe 3-4 weeks ago. About 60% of it got shipped. They said the rest of it will be in a couple 3 weeks.
Nice.
So I was like, okay, no big deal. I'm just buying extra stock so I have it in case this shortage becomes like the toilet paper shortage of last year,
Mm-hmm.
So I emailed my guy today. I said, hey, there's going to be some other stuff I add to that order when that shipment's ready to go. He sent me an email. It's like, well, it's not going to be anytime soon. And what do you need? He was like, it's getting much worse.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
So I was like, holy crap. He sent me a back order list of what they have in their expected dates, and it's half their tubes are currently on back order.
Wow.
And some of them have no ETAs, and I'm like, holy crap.
So is it from due to COVID or?
The story I'm getting is that some of it's COVID. Because the details I've got is that you've got one factory in the old Czech Republic, which is JJ.
Right.
And then New Sensor runs 2 factories. And the story I'm getting, those are the only factories that are currently operating.
Oh, wow.
The Russian ones are short-staffed because of COVID and are short-staffed in addition to higher demand because the Chinese factory that burned down a couple years ago,
right.
Most of that stock is now run through. So, yeah, the demand's still the same. And now those tubes that were covering probably a third or more of demand are gone. And
put me down for a duet and a quad of EL84s, please.
Okay. I got a lot of 84s right now, so we're good on that. We'll see. It's I got to call my guy tomorrow and be like, okay, what do you have on hand right now? What can I put my hands on. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's there are a lot of implications. You're one fella
Yeah.
across the world.
I do nothing. I am a tiny little drop in the bucket compared to what the manufacturers. I don't know. Some of these guys that have been using, the big guys that use, less expensive tubes, typically the JJ or the generic Sovtex.
I mean, I could be way out of line here, but it seems as though somebody like Fender, who's making that many amplifiers that require tubes, it would behoove them to go, maybe we should make parts. Or invest in one of those companies that,
Yeah,
double, get the facility up, double production.
You may have
Come
a
on.
point there, but boy,
Somebody.
production of tubes, though.
I mean, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, you ought to get into repairing tubes.
I'm working on it. I can't figure out how to put the vacuum back in it, though.
Well, you need to go up with the SpaceX or something like that. You can do your repairs up in outer space.
There we go. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Jared, how about yourself?
So last week, I get a call from Andy Harrison, a mutual friend between all of us, really. And he was down here in Nashville, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to come over and bring chicken, and we're going to barbecue it." I think he was still thinking I was living with another mutual friend of ours. His name's Jason Quicksell. So I said, "Yeah, I moved." He's like, "Oh, just come over to Jason's. We're gonna barbecue chicken and drink some beers." And Jason has that green egg thing, and it is one of the best ways
barbecue.
Okay.
It's one of the best ways to smoke and barbecue food. It is so good, and so I'm like, I just throw on a t-shirt and some, gym type shorts, just workout shorts.
The specifics of this story are astounding already.
It will, if you're patient and let me finish the story,
Okay.
What color were the
it will
socks?
all come together.
Is this in your barbecue week or?
This is barbecue week with Jared Brandon. So I show up, and Andy Harrison shows up. He's got all the chicken and the food, and we're cooking all this food, having a good time. Then Audley Freeman shows up, and his girlfriend as well. I don't know if they're married or not, but Audley Freeman is Sheryl Crow's guitar player.
Okay,
and they're dressed nice,
Context.
and I look like the scuzzbag off the street. I had no idea they're showing up. But the really, really
Were
super
they
great
dressed up?
people. They look good, yeah. They're both in the music business, very professional. They have professional music careers, and
Right.
I guess I have a professional career in music gear.
Yeah.
But
I
it
think
was.
that doesn't require you to dress up.
So they had studded gym shorts or what?
It may as well. I don't know. I had no idea. So it was a really good time. They're all super great musicians, and the part where I was getting to was they were telling elevator stories. Who they got stuck in an elevator with, and one of them was the guy who does Tutti Frutti. Who is that?
Little Richard.
Little Richard's in there.
Who does Tutti Frutti?
I know what he's talking about.
How could you
Tutti
bring
Frutti?
originator of rock and roll?
Oh my God!
The guy who does Tutti Frutti.
You know the one guy who invented rock and roll, the piano. So they were telling all these stories.
Elvis.
And so you don't say anything, right, to people when in the elevator. I don't know if you don't know them. I guess there's a code for that. And I got to tell the story about my dad was in an elevator with Brian Wilson in the early 90s. And I think Brian Wilson was still under the lack of care of that doctor that was over medicating him. Mm-hmm. And my dad saw him in the elevator. He's like, "Oh my gosh, Brian Wilson. I've been listening to you all my life, man. I love your music." Brian Wilson looks at my dad and says, "Hey, how much do you weigh?"
He's worried about
My
the
dad was
elevator.
heavy set.
You might have to get off at the next floor.
Yeah, like how much do you weigh? I mean,
I'm looking at the weight load on this elevator, and it's oh my god.
so yeah,
How
that's
did
the
this story start again? How did we get here?
This is
barbecue.
Oh, that's right.
It's
Okay.
a barbecue elevator story.
The moral of
right.
the story is: do not talk to celebrities on elevators.
no way. You got to. You
Why
have
not?
to.
They're
It
trapped.
always ends up bad.
I think it's best to push all the buttons.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what floor do you want?
You get a longer trip with the celebrity that you're not supposed to talk with.
Oh, well,
I've been thrilled with my elevator encounters, and I wouldn't take it back.
Jared.
Yeah.
The chicken was good.
The chicken was outstanding. Jason and his wife are fantastic hosts. I mean,
Nice.
Megan and Jason both are outstanding musicians themselves. And we know Andy is, and it was just, we didn't play any music or sing. We
I
just,
was going to ask if they asked you to join the band.
no. Well, all we did was just eat food and have a good time and have a few drinks.
Nice.
It was a really good time.
Excellent.
That's awesome. That's a good story, Jared. Thank you.
Well, no time for your music world
I know.
this
I
week.
gotta hustle this along real quick here.
Let's skip over what Todd has to say.
today,
It's not important anyways.
my music week consisted of getting this really cool book sent to me from, via Jared. This is from James.
James, Finnerty.
Yeah, it's his hand script. Hey, our mutual friend Jared thought you might enjoy my book. Best regards, James from Rewind Electric.
Yeah.
And he sent me this really cool book. It's called PFA Humbucking Pickup.
Or
from
PAF.
PAF.
PFA.
What is wrong with you, man?
That's the precursor to the PAF.
Yeah.
I'm holding
Patent
something and
for
reading at the
applied.
same thing. At the
James
same thing,
is
at the same time.
James is one of the premier pickup builders in the PAF world.
Yeah,
Nice.
this is really
He's one of the biggies. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for him.
There,
So.
I was like, how cool can a pickup book be? Well, now I know. I mean, this is really a cool book. Thank you, Jared and James, for sending that. And yes, he will be coming on the show at some point in the near
cool.
future. This will
That
be
is awesome.
Yeah, I have this.
That way.
This is an excellent book. I have this one.
Of course, he has it. Tony has every
Every,
book
yeah.
known to man about.
You do have that
the
book, Tony
instrument.
Baloney?
I do.
Yeah,
Of course you do.
I purchased mine.
Maybe.
I did too, out of respect.
Maybe I can get him to sign yours.
Well, I can probably change the Todd to Tony.
Yeah. Anyways, so I'm really excited about that. I had all kinds of other crazy fun stuff happen in Guitar Week, but that was
That's
kind of
cool.
a highlight. So I appreciate that, buddy.
Read through that because you'll learn a thing or two.
Yeah, I will. That's what
It's
books are
awesome.
for. Jared,
You.
you're down in Tennessee now.
Nashville,
Yes.
Tennessee.
Yes, in Nashville, Tennessee.
Texas.
Chafe.
Are the same requirements for pedal boards necessary down there?
Absolutely.
What would be those requirements? What is the most important thing you can have on your pedal board next to your pedals?
Tour gear design cords.
cables,
Cables.
patch
Yeah.
cables.
However you want to say it, tour gear design. Patch
gear
cables
design.
are
Yes.
necessary to work all your pedals.
That is correct. And these ones are especially great. Very low profile, very flat,
As a crepe.
and and they're super affordable and outstanding in all ways,
All
shapes, and forms.
respects.
In all respects. And
Yep.
they've got a whole bunch of configurations that will fit all of your pedal
And
needs.
they're not going to break the bank either.
No, they're not. They start out. I think the cheapest one is under $6. Go try to duplicate that somewhere else, people. All right.
Buy a
And-
bunch of them.
Yeah, you can get those at tourgeardesigns.com/discount/the guitar knobs, and you're gonna save 10% off that.
You're telling me you're going to save an extra 10% off an already low price?
You are. And if you just go to tourgeardesigns.com and then under your code put
Yeah.
the guitar knobs, I think it'll still work out.
Yeah.
And it'll make your whole life better as far as your pedal board life goes. So we really appreciate them making an outstanding product and also for sponsoring our 4 on the Floor.
How about a little bit of this?
1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor.
Michael King, are you ready for your 4 on the floor?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. The first one is the oldest one that I have, and it's an old DOD wah volume control.
Okay.
And it's compact. It's small. It's as heavy as a brick. I don't like it as much for the wah as I do for the volume control. The volume control on it is just crazy good, and I haven't seen anything. The Ernie Ball's good, but it's bigger. It's a little bit bigger than I like. So I'm really with this, and I've had it since I think they first came out. It's pretty old.
Is that a die-cast one?
It is heavy. I had one of those for years.
Yeah, I guess it's die-cast. He's right. It's heavy. It's a big, as far as the height goes, it's kind of tall, but it's really short. It's a short, strange thing, but I love the volume control on it.
That's cool.
And there's like a side kick pedal that you have to go from volume to wah. I remember that being.
There's a little button on the side that you push in, and it changes it. Yes, and it was given to me as a birthday present when I first started playing guitar.
Nice.
And let's see. The second thing is a kind of a strange thing. I'm a compressor junkie. I love compression.
Interesting.
It's my all-time favorite thing. It is. The company is. It's got kind of two company names. The box says Flip, FLIP, but on the pedal it says, when you flip it over on the bottom of it, it says Tokyo Sound. It's like a Japanese compressor. It's got a tube in it too. It's old too. Yeah, I think I got it back in the 95, 96, somewhere around there.
Ooh.
And I've been using it ever since. And
Tony's looking it up.
Yeah, it's Flip, I think. You'll find it under the name Flip Electronics or Tokyo Sound, one of those two. Kind of a strange pedal. I've never seen another one around like it.
Wow.
Yeah, I bought it off of eBay when eBay first jumped in the scene. I was just, it's a compressor. So, let me try it, because it was the first one I'd seen with a tube in it. Before that, I'd use the old Ross, those old Ross, I think it was brown or tan color or something.
Brown.
Yeah,
right.
It looks like it's made by Gaiatone.
Gaiatone, yep.
Yeah, Gaiatone sold them. They were the distributors of it.
Okay.
But that's funny you mention that because I have a Gaiatone pedal. It's a little green micro Gaiatone compressor. Mm-hmm. That would be the next one I like.
Do you find that there is a huge difference in all of your different compressors? It sounds like
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that flip compressor, thing's got 6 knobs on it? That's not your typical compressor by any stretch of the imagination.
Nah, it's a weird thing. I haven't seen any others.
It's like a preamp too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You better hold on to it. I'm looking at one that's $3,000.
Wow.
What?
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's just a compressor.
That's there's one on Reverb right now for $280. So quick buy that and try to flip it for $3,000.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Heck, I think I paid like $30-$40 for this one. Anytime I see a compressor, awesome. I'll try it. I'll try it.
Have you ever tried the what's my favorite one? The Demeter?
Yeah, I did. It's not that I didn't like it, but it sounded too much like something I already had at the time. I don't remember what it was.
It's very studio-like. It doesn't impart much of anything,
Right. I wouldn't say it's like geared directly towards a guitar or bass, but it's a compressor.
Yeah.
The only other compressor that I would like to have that I still don't have is getting more expensive by the day. Are you guys familiar with Tom Schultz? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
Yeah. Well, he made a compressor back in the day. That's where his sound comes from. That Boston sound comes from that. But he made a compressor back. And you remember the blue boxes that he made? The Rockman stuff.
The little third rack series, yeah.
Yeah, those little half-size rack boxes. He had one. It was called the Sustainer.
Yep.
And that's another compressor that I would like to have. I don't have one yet, but it's one I like to have.
I tell you what, I just had someone email me to repair a couple of those actually. And
I have to get one from them.
well, there's the problem. When they go bad, they really go bad.
They're done.
They're kind of done. Exactly. Yeah. But he sold them on online, broken, each one for like $1, $1.50, something like that.
Wow.
So I was like, there you go. That's the best thing you can do.
I wonder if he could send them back to Tom Schultz himself and have him do them.
I wonder. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a thing. My fourth pedal, though, that I would really dig it's something I've been hung on to a long time. It's something I just got, and I looked for it a long time. As a matter of fact, I put up a thing on Instagram asking for suggestions. I have all the 1300 series Silvertone amps, the really old ones with the tweed and alligator skin combinations on them. Well, they sound wonderful, but they're made. The cabinets are made out of this compressed cardboard. They're all tube, but when they break up, there's just no brown sound like that. And part of it is obviously because of the cabinet. The cabinets are a little soft, so it takes a little of those square waves out of it. I've been looking for a pedal that I could get that sound with, because dragging those things around is just not something you do. I got a bunch of suggestions for pedals, and one person said try a Wampler, a Thomas, and I sampled that and fell in love with it, but I didn't buy it right away, and I just kept looking at it. I'm going to get it, and finally he comes out with that Andy Wood gear drive, and I'm in love with that thing. That's my newest acquisition. It is just the most amazing overdrive pedal I've ever used, and it's two pedals. I think it's a Pinnacle and a Tumnus in one box.
Right, I remember that one now. Yep, I remember the release on that.
We had True North on recently, and he's got one called the Tweed, and that Tweed has a great range. I mean, it is a how do you want to say, an undersung? Yeah.
I have to check that out.
It's a good amp substitute. You could.
There's a lot of range in that, and it's a little tiny pedal, and it actually has tweed fabric all over it, and it sounds great. It sounds fantastic.
It's called True North as a company.
Yeah.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
I'll definitely check it out. Nice. Yeah. But those are just the volume pedal. I've got a couple of compressors. And one other pedal that I have that's not really even a pedal. It's just a looper pedal. It's a TC Electronics looper pedal. But that's it. I don't have a lot of pedals. Everything I do is pretty much those pedals through an amp, and that's it.
Cool.
Well, there's definitely a couple on there that we have not had on.
Yeah, that's great.
On our list
I love
before.
it.
That's cool.
David Kaminga is going to buy all of those. Well, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. It is one of our listeners' favorite segments, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
But by and large, the favorite segmentation we've got in our show is the interview, of course. So, Michael, we're really thrilled to find out more about your story, how you got started in this, but mostly about like your design decisions and how you're going about this process. And I know Tony and Jared and Rob all have a lot of questions. So make sure, where can people, if people haven't heard yet so far, where can they go to see your stuff? Cowbranddesign.com, and my Instagram, which you can access through the website, is Electro Stringed. Solid. All right. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to find at either of those destinations some really intriguing designs. Very different designs. There's a retro aspect to it. There's a future aspect to it at the same time. And it's pretty neat stuff. So let me ask you, Michael, are you by trade a fabricator, or where does this all come from? That's a tough question. I graduated as, believe it or not, as a motorcycle mechanic initially. I went to a school called South County Technical. It was a 3-year program, and
did do a lot of fabrication because in the classes that I had, I'd get a lot of stuff that just did not exist anymore, parts and things like that. So we were taught to, that is part of the program. But at the same time I was doing that, from age 7, literally from age 7, I worked in a hobby shop and I did everything. I built radio controlled planes, helicopters. I did train layouts. I would get contracted out to go build these layouts out of these layout books from Atlas and companies like that. And every once in a while, somebody would come in. Generally, it was a wife. She would come in and she would be like, I want my husband to have this airplane or whatever. And she thought she could walk in and buy it. It'd be like one you had to build and, paper the wings and dope them and all of that. And, the owner was the shop was owned by one guy. And he's, well, you have to build these. And said, oh, I can't do that. I said, well, you can hire this guy. He'll do it for you if you got the time. So that's how I kind of got into building radio controlled planes and models and things like that. And, a lot of fabrication in that.
Well, there was another motorcycle repairman racer by the name of Paul A. Bigsby.
Yeah.
Right.
that did. Well, and a lot of what he did on the design of the Bigsby tremolo and other in his guitars were directly related. The original Bigsby springs were valve springs from a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't have known that. That's incredible. And it's funny. I don't even think that's mentioned in his book. I've got the book on him. And that isn't even mentioned there.
That's a great book by one of our other friends.
Yeah. And
Andy Babiuk.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great book. If I'm not mistaken, what was the other motorcycle guy's name? Built the most right. Simi Mosley was a motorcycle racer.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Well, you are one of 3 of an illustrious
3 known motorcycles.
Well, but that's kind of a special thing.
Yeah.
That explains Mosrite's pickups. He used Bondo to construct those pickups.
Wow,
there we go.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah. They're very crude.
Yeah.
So.
They work though.
They're legendary now. So.
Yeah.
So
the whole time I was in, working in the hobby shop, I was, like I said, I was going to that school, but that all just came crashing down. And that's kind of what led me to the music store job that I got.
Huh.
And where was that?
And, it was the name of the music store?
Yeah.
It was this place called Baton Music, and this is all so interconnected. If I could, I'll try and connect it for you. It was a music store, and it was in a kind of an area kind of called the Loop. I lived like in this suburb, and it had like this little spot between the suburb that I lived in and the more urbanized city part. And
this in Missouri?
It was in Missouri. Yes, this is in Missouri. And how can I put it? Well, when I was working in a hobby shop, something happened. I worked there for like 7 years, and from a kid all the way up until high school. My last year of high school, the guy that owned the hobby shop passed away. Where I was working, and I thought, well, that's that, And it was my last year of high school. And another job that I always wanted, it's going to sound crazy, was I always wanted a job at Radio Shack. I don't know if you guys remember Radio Shack.
Oh, yeah.
Of course we do.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. They had all sorts of toys and gadgets.
Right. Well, I always wanted to work there. And there was a Radio Shack not far from my house. And I just thought, well, I'm going to go see if I can get a job here. And I went in and I asked. And the guy knew me because I was in there buying parts and stuff all the time. And he goes, well, we don't have any openings, but he wrote this number down. It was a regional manager. He says, call this guy up. And I called him, and he goes, yeah, come down. They were opening up one in this mall. So he says, if you come down here and help us unload everything, get the cases and everything, I can promise you a job. Well, I went down there and I did it. And this was like right before Christmas. I went down there and I did it. And right after that day, I came home and I got a phone call. It was from a guy that owned a music store. And he asked me if I needed a job. And I'm like, who are you? So he told me he knew this guy, his name was Pete, that owned the hobby shop. The hobby shop was called Pete's Hobby Shop. And he says he knew him, and he knew that he had passed away. But what he told me was Pete had always talked about him. They were good friends. They did lunch and stuff. He said, he'd always talked about you. So you were really good with your hands and blah, blah, blah. And we have need for that. If you want a job, I was like, no way. I got this really cool job at Radio Shack. He's like, are you crazy? Give up. No, I got Radio Shack job. So anyway, he convinced me because the place was in the Loop and it was really close to my house. Well, the Radio Shack job took like an hour and a half to get on a bus. And, I was still going to high school and everything. It was the middle of winter. And, this was closer. He goes, not only that, if you can find your way down here after school, I'll drive you home every day. Well, I took that job. Now, when I got there, all that was there was pretty much he sold sheet music and had a few used things. And one of the things that I thought was a little interesting about the place, when I got there, he had a case and it had electro-harmonics pedals in it. And at that time, they were the original electro-harmonics. Your soul preachers, your big muff fuzz. They weren't the things that we see now, the new versions of it. He still had this stuff in his cases, and he only had a few of them. Didn't have a lot of guitars or anything. But, I didn't know what they were because I didn't play any instruments. I didn't know anything about instruments. And that's one of the things that I told him. I said, well, why would I want to work here? I got a job at Radio Shack. I don't play any instruments. I don't know anything about it. Well, he said, well, just come down here, So basically, when I got there, I was sweeping floors. He sold lots of sheet music. I was, straightening the racks out, putting stuff. But every once in a while, somebody would come in with an instrument or something. Well, that's not something that I knew how to fix, but what was cool about this guy was he sent me first to woodwind repair school, and it was like over 2 months or 3 months, and it was like 2 or 3 times a week. It's been so long. This was quite a while ago, and I did that, and I was doing a lot of brass and woodwind, and what he did was he picked up the business for that, from the schools and everything else, but every once in a while, because it was the music store was right next to a college as well, people would come in with these guitars, and they would literally, these college students, they would ask to have them tuned. They would say, can you tune this or put strings on it or whatever? And he was like, well, I don't know how to do that. So I took a Mel Bay method and taught myself to tune a guitar. And then from there, I learned to play one, and then it just kind of snowballed. And eventually I went to my first NAMM show with them. We wound up with Gibson and Epiphone lines, and I became a certified warranty repair place from there. And from there, I got a book on Benedetto, Benedetto arch tops. I learned to build arch tops, and I worked at Canelling Violin for a while, and then it just snowballed. All this stuff is interconnected, and it's just kind of one of those.
It's a typical, despite what you think you want to do, sometimes things fall into on your path.
Exactly. And it's not something that is just the furthest thing from my mind. It took me no time to even learn to play a guitar. I basically, the thing that kind of launched me into what I'm doing exactly right now is one thing, because this is in the St. Louis area, you got your path from the south to the north. A lot of blues musicians would come through, St. Louis on their way migrating to Chicago, which is where a lot of great blues came from after it left the South. Your Muddy Waters and all them, they started out in the South, but that electric Chicago sound that we all know so well, from Muddy Waters and people like that, it's kind of a Chicago thing. But some of them stopped. They didn't go all the way to Chicago. They wound up in St. Louis. And I got to meet a lot of them not knowing who they were. A lot of them have passed away. And I was lucky enough, I just fell into this blues community and met all these people that I didn't even know who they were until I started reading Living Blues magazines and things like that. And I started working on a lot of their equipment, people like Henry Townsend, Tommy Bankhead. I think the highlight was selling an instrument to Hubert Sumlin, Howlin' Wolf's, guitar player. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of a mail order kind of deal. A guy that worked in my shop was on tour with a touring musician and was on the same bill with him, and just started trading information. Before I knew it, I got the phone call. But what was cool about it was there were a lot of inner city, what we call storefront churches. And they would bring these instruments into Baton, where I worked, and want to trade them in. And by that time, we had, kind of middle of the road instruments like Hondos and Quartz and things like that. And they would bring these instruments in. There were harmonies, Ks, and Silvertones, wanting to trade them in on these kind of faux Les Pauls and that kind of looked like more expensive. Whenever they would bring them in, Harold would take them in, the owner would take them in as part of the down payment. And I would immediately buy them. And I amassed a collection. I just fell in love with the sound, and that sound is what I was hunting for in the things that I do now, because I've always loved K's, harmonies, and Silvertones and all those types of things. So what I make now, like with my pickups and that, it's not exactly that sound, but I like to think that I kind of, if these companies would have stuck around and finally got to a place where they were taken a little bit more serious, and because of that invested more in the products that they were doing, would be what kind of where I'm, what my instruments are. So, you
basically your manufacturing of guitars or building of guitars came from the repair side of things. Was it?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Was it simultaneous, or was it? You did repairs for a number of years, and then. Oh,
I did repairs pretty much for I guess about 10 years before I even considered building an instrument. And the first instrument that I built was a bass for a bass player by the name of Stanley Clark. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez, yes, of course.
I like how
I made a bass for him.
A guy.
I don't know if you've heard of him.
A guy.
A bass
some people
player
haven't.
named Stanley Clark. Oh my god.
Some people haven't, believe it or not. You'd be surprised. But I built him a bass, which was really cool. I got to go to a show and watch him play it on stage and everything.
That is, if you've never seen, it is one of those things. Like it is arguably like life changing as a musician to watch Stanley Clark play live. I mean,
he's
remarkable.
Definitely,
remarkable.
Definitely. And this is yes, definitely. And he's another one. I kind of knew who he was at the time. I got a call from a studio, and the engineer there was a very good friend of his. It was a short-lived, very expensive studio for this area. They came to St. Louis, they built a studio. Didn't survive, but the engineer that they brought in from L.A., who was actually from L.A., knew Stanley. I don't know how that, what the connection was there, but he knew him very well. And Stanley was coming to St. Louis to do some work or something, and he told him about me. I met with him, and before I knew it, I was building a bass. And, it was really cool. It was kind of a cool experience. But he left, and he was on like a return trip. And funny enough, there was a guy that he played with. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy, but his name is George Duke. He's a keyboard player. And he put out a series of albums as well. But he was with them, and they were touring together. And he said, "Well, I'm coming through St. Louis," and he gave us the time, and it was all
with
done.
The trio or with Return to Forever?
No, this was not. This was just George Duke and him, and they had a drummer and another keyboard. I don't think it was any like Chick Corea. This was like a solo kind of thing, or his own thing. By the time I met Stanley, he wasn't anywhere near Return to Forever. I think that was kind of off to the side, and he was touring with this other really well known keyboard player by the name of George Duke. And I got to meet with them both. They were both there at the same time when I delivered the bass, and I got to meet them and everything. But it was a lot of fun.
What a awesome.
All right, so we're going to get Bill Frisell, Vernon Reid, and Stanley Clark all in the same room.
I mean, Clark is royalty. I mean, oof.
He's great. He is good.
Wow. And then from that point, so that was your first build, and then when did you start developing, I guess, what you would call your parlor series?
That was always something that was in my mind, but it took a while to do that, because before I did that, like right after I built this bass for Stanley, and I built a couple of 7-strings, and then there was a body design from that bass and that guitar, the 7-string guitar that I built for a guy that was a solid body, that I sold to a company, the rights to it, to a company by the name of Conklin Guitars, and they're in Missouri. I think they're still around, actually.
That sounds
But
familiar,
they bought the rights to all of that from me. And then I just took that money and invested in some new equipment that I, the first time even having was to start building arch tops. So I built arch tops for a while, hollow body guitars, and then I started teaching it for a little bit. And, I took on several students. And after that, I put all that to the side and I opened a small shop that focused only on refurbishing K's, harmonies, and Silvertones and things like that. And through that shop, I met another incredible player. You might have heard of this guy. His name is Alvin Youngblood Hart. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't heard of him, Google him. He's crazy good. He's an incredible musician. Yeah, he's on a lot of soundtracks, and to me he is truly a keeper of the flame when it comes to the old school real blues. And he plays it, and he's a huge fan of that same type of equipment that I was at the time. This is about 2000, back in 2000. And, I met him, and that's when I got the idea, well, I want to do, this is what I want to do. Because I'd always seen him playing like these Stratatones and things like that. And I said, I want to make something that's like that, but it's more, still me. So that's when I, decided to actually start designing something. But it was a minute before I did that because I knocked it all off. I had an accident with my left eye, and that caused a lot of problems, and not to mention eating up a bunch of insurance money for me. But I went back to school, and I studied design, and two types of design. First, I went to school and I studied Rankin Technical College, and I studied electrical systems design. And then after that, I went and I decided, well, let me see what's up with graphic design. So I got an associate's in graphic design, and that kind of cemented it, because after I finished the graphic design, just associate's degree, I thought, well, let me continue down this graphic design thing. At the same time, I started looking for a job, and that was at that point where the recession had hit, and the housing bubble had broke, and I couldn't find a gig for nothing. I mean, just nothing. So I got an offer to build an instrument using my graphic design skills, but they knew I had a background in instruments. So the Contemporary Art Museum here in our town got me to do this instrument for the Contemporary Art Museum. And it was basically what they really wanted was a skateboard with a neck on it. Now I'm against that. Too many people have done that. It was like, nah, I'm not doing that. So what they wanted to do is hand me a skateboard deck, and they had me do something with it. Well, I took it and I made a lap steel. And that was the first time I made my own pickup and everything. And I figured, well, a lap steel will work, because in this day and age, not a lot of people are paying attention to lap steels. They don't really know quite, they don't realize how popular they were maybe back in the day, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I said, I'll do this. I'm not putting a neck on a skateboard deck. I'm just not going to do it. So I did that, and it went over really well. And from there, I got some offers to teach guitar making again. And one of the guys was this guy that is a major furniture designer, and he owns a company called Global Custom Furniture. And he had me, I did a workshop with him and some other guys in a really nice, which I had never had before, a really nice woodworking shop. And I taught, it was a weekend course over, I think it was 2 months, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a minute. But I did that, and the instrument that I built is what you see now. I didn't know that that's what I was going to build. I just started designing, because the thing was, they wanted to watch the process. I used the rule of 18 to lay out the fret spacing. It was all, there wasn't just punching the numbers into a, Stuart McDonald fret spacing program and get the answers. I showed them how to do the math to get it all the way down, because that's how I learned it out of the Benedetto book. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I did that, and the first instrument I built was the catalyst for what you see now. And I just kept going down that road and building more. So once that class was over, I just came home and just continued to build to what you see now, and I just kept elaborating on it by designing. The pickup has been through a bunch of different evolutions. I just kept evolving it, and the bridge as well. So. And then on top of that, this story goes off in so many different directions, like with my designs. Like I use 3D printing, and I also use CNC milling as well. You know, I have a desktop.
So
CNC
you do have aluminum pickup covers, right? That's where the CNC aluminum. Yeah, those are tight.
Right.
I've been looking at these for a long time, and I'm like, look at these. There's nothing else like them. These are the only ones. He did his own, and they are cool. I mean, I imagine they are single coils, and I'm imagining that that is north or south side of a bar magnet that is in the center.
You're talking about the bridge?
The bridge pickup. Yeah.
The bridge. I generally run north.
Okay,
sometimes I'll put the south up.
So that's I'm right. Is that the edge of the magnet? That is the
pole piece. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That is
they
so
are.
Cool.
But I'll tell you something else. That bridge pickup is not a 5. It's a 2.
Sure.
A 5
would
a lot
be
of people
way
like
too
to
bright.
too bright. So I go with the 2. And another thing that's kind of misunderstood about that is that aluminum kind of robs a little bit of your top end. Mm-hmm. Even if it's like you got that exposed pole piece in the bridge position, it'll still rob a little bit of your top end. You got that little Faraday's cage thing going, but it'll rob a little bit of your top end, and that's purpose. And the neck is those are 5s, and they're individual pole pieces. You just can't see them; they're inside.
Right. Okay, I got you.
Right.
That is robbing the top end makes it just sound a little sweeter. Just overall,
it does.
Yeah,
and there's a way to compensate for that too, to get it right in that sweet spot, which is what took me so long with them. Yeah. I wind them with 43 gauge, and I'm using a 500K pot instead of a 250 too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all these like little tricks, because I was just looking for this. I wanted a sweet spot that you could use a flat wound or a round wound with, and that took a little bit more doing than most people would think to get it just right. And I managed to do enough of them, and it's like I said, it's been through a serious evolution, but it's right where I want it now.
So pretty much right out the gate, you were making your own pickups, designing and making your own pickups. Were you doing the milling at the same time, or was that?
No, the milling came in a little later. The reason for that is it's funny because out the gate, I was hand cutting everything, even though I was using aluminum on the pickups. Mm-hmm. But as soon as the 3D printer became a thing, and I got it right when it became a thing, and I got it from the person I consider is the godfather, and that's this guy Bree Pettis. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Mm-mm. There's a documentary on him on Netflix. His name is Bree Pettis. It's him and 2 other guys gave us the desktop 3D printer. They were the first guys. They came up with the concept and designed it. And Bree was kind of the Steve Jobs guy, at the head of this thing, steering it, marketing it, and having all this input onto what it should be. But that was literally the first desktop machine. There were some industrial grade ones around, but they came out with the first desktop machine, and it was called the MakerBot. And there's a
we had one of those at work.
There's a documentary about him and this thing, and it's called Print the Legend, and it's about Bree. It's on Netflix. It's called Print the Legend. Well, funny enough, it's something that I wanted, but I couldn't afford it because the small ones are like $4,000, which is way out of my price range when they first came out. So he saw my work on Instagram. It sounds crazy, but it happened.
Wow.
And I didn't, I knew he was, but he saw my work on Instagram and he contacted me and just flat out said, "I want one of your guitars." So, that's all he said. So I'm like, okay. So I was like, okay, we have to decide exactly what it is you want. What do you want me to build? And, that's what I shot him back. And he goes, okay, I'm going to do that. And then maybe a couple of weeks later, I didn't hear from him. So I sent him another email. I'm like, well, have you thought about it? And he just gives me an answer. He goes, well, you know what? I just want you to make what you make. But if you could just put some cool wood on it somewhere, something that looks really cool somewhere. And that's exactly what That's what I did. And the instrument that he got, you might have seen it. It's on my Instagram. It's a strange looking instrument. It's natural wood, and it's got kind of neon green sides and a neon green cover plate on. It looks sort of like a resonator.
Yep.
And
we're looking at it right now, actually, by happenstance, not on purpose.
Well, he that's his instrument, and he got it, and he fell in love with it, and he commissioned a second instrument.
Wow.
Now, the thing we have to know about him is that he sold his portion of MakerBot and went on and founded a new company called Bantam Tool. And Bantam Tool, that's what they make. They make desktop CNC machines. Well, he immediately sent me one. Right.
It's good to have friends in high places.
Yes. And what's cooler is, I've got a second one coming, an even larger one coming from his company. It's it's in the process now. I'm waiting on it, but that opens me up to do even more stuff. But what's the most important thing to me is that I be able to, for me, I'm not going to make a guitar that has. I just say it like I don't want off the shelf parts on my guitars. I want the whole guitar to have an identity. The same way when you first saw a Fender, it had an identity. When you saw Gibson, it had an identity, and they were their identities.
Yeah. And
it seems like what's happened is there are body identities that I see a lot, but I don't see that. And for me, the hardware and the pickups are all part of it as well. And I don't see that. I see a lot of different bodies being made, but they tend to put a Telecaster pickup in and then drop a Gibson bridge on it, or just, they do all these different things. And I'm not opposed to that, but it's just not for me. I want you to be able to look at the guitar and just get the whole idea of what I'm getting at, as opposed to just trying to different with it. It's not just different that I'm looking for. I'm just kind of
Well, you have to commit completely to that, and I think that's because if you just stick an odd part on there, I mean, that can be cool, but it's entirely different thing to say, no, I'm going to commit to a completely.
Yes,
you really have to have thought out your aesthetic for that.
You absolutely do. It's funny that you said commit. There's another bass player. You probably know who he is. There's Marcus Miller. You know who Marcus Miller is? Yeah. Marcus Miller is
him too.
He said something that stuck with me like a ton of bricks. He was asked about his style and how he does and what it takes to become a great bass player, and his answer was, you cannot have a style unless you're willing to commit to something and let everything else go. You're going to lose something, but you just have to commit and just be in this one spot. Yeah. And I agree with that 100%, because I don't know how somebody's going to take the fact that I'm doing 23.5-inch scale length, or I'm using woods that most people before wouldn't go near, or the fact that my bridges are aluminum and brass as opposed to the metal that everybody else is, using. I just knew what was going to be right.
Aside from woods and actually, I want to, if you don't mind, I'm just going to divert this just a little bit.
Go ahead.
You're, I say this in the kindest way. You looking at your guitars sometimes reminds me of walking through my grandparents' home.
That's cool.
Which was, they were Air Force. They were Air Force family in Edwards Air Force Base in California, and all of their furniture, even when I grew up, was stuck in the late 50s, early 60s. Everything was mid-century. So, and that's not just like low furniture. It's all kinds of different materials. So I'm seeing swirled mica top, and you got like almost like it almost looks like PCB, but it's like fiberglass kind of stuff almost. You got translucent plastic, acrylics, and shapes that don't have any business being there. I mean, but that was what was cool, because they were everything was spacey and wonky shaped, and like this is like when you look at this, it's like if like, I don't know, pick any blues player, Howlin' Wolf or Muddy Waters or Robert Johnson or whatever, was in the Jetsons.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, that is what's up. And it's funny because when we think about like blues players and that, it isn't that they were just trying to stick with these like this old guitar or whatever. They weren't thinking of themselves as like the old blues player, or I'm playing blues or whatever. They were their own rock players. And like when you look at Albert King with this Flying V,
Yeah.
What's another ones that was the guys who used the Super all the time? I mean, there was all these blues players, and I can't even remember some of the smaller ones that you see. Like, what is he doing with that guitar? You look at Bo Diddley with his square guitar.
Yeah.
They were trying to evolve their idea too.
Get out of here.
Yeah, right, exactly. But so it's all, it's not like anybody's trying to stay one place. They're just trying to be, just be hip in their, in their own way. And for me, you kind of nailed it when you said space, though, because I am a junkie for 60s sci-fi stuff. I love Lost in Space. I love The Invader. All that Irwin Allen stuff.
Yeah.
Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Car designers from that era. I mean, these look like it looks like one of the car designers would have made some of these things.
Right. There's no doubt. And let's face it, we all know that, as is always said to us in design school, that most everything is kind of driven by car design. We look at like I've got a guitar that is a pretty rare guitar these days. It's like the most expensive guitar that Kay ever made. It's a Kay Jazz Special Barney Kessel model. And it's got the acrylic on it, the fancy big head stock with the Grover Imperial tuners. It's got all of that stuff on it. But when you look at it, it's just so Cadillac that when you think about the time period it came out in the 50s, people are like, well, that's a little too much. So, you just never know. So, but for me, I'm just blending these ideas that are from kind of like that, but at the same time, it's just what I see the guitar as. I'm not like pretentiously just trying to, I'm going to throw this on, it's going to be really cool. What's happening with my guitars is just how I see the guitar. I see a little bit of Gretschness in them, a little bit of Gibson in them. I see a little bit of Fender in them, but I see a lot of me and what I liked about those, more importantly, in them. And the pickups, I always just wanted to pick up like that. I want to pick up with the little slots in it, So
kind of reminds me of the Jetsons.
Down that rabbit hole.
You know what I mean? Like the Jetsons.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty cool. I mean,
it's funny because
just
the
like
one
Todd
thing
said.
Did you say that, Todd?
Yeah. It's okay. We minutes ago. It's okay. I said it really fast. It's okay. But the point still stands.
I think the one thing on my guitars that if you look at somebody asked me, I said I got that from the Jetsons, is the control plate itself.
Oh man, but it is so cool. It's so cool, and it actually looks like something you'd see like actually on an older motorcycle. Right.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. And that was my thing. I didn't want perfectly symmetrical. I didn't want any of that for the control plate. It had to be that little funky wedge. But ultimately, it all kind of came together. When you look at the bridge, some people have noticed that the bridge is kind of taking its cues from the pickups and vice versa, and so is the control plate. But there are people that didn't really even see that. I'm like, the bridge. Oh, I look at that. Bridge is wider on the bass side than it is on the treble side. Like, yeah, it is. I just kind of
in the most complimentary way. This is something that I could see being sold at like any MoMA, museum.
Right next to the Teufel birdfish.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, no,
for real.
He's another one that I like.
Yeah. Well, one of the most impressive things that I read a little bit about is your commitment to being environmentally friendly in your finishes and the products and materials that you're using. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, finish. I'll start the finish because I get questions about that all the time. I get direct messages. And I hope that people are finally figuring it out. waterborne finishes are something that I wanted to do all the way back, as far back as, like I was saying, when I was, first started building, back Stanley Clark bass time. And back then, it was hard to find them. Stuart McDonald came out with one, but you had to have so many different things to mix it.
Yeah.
And it was too much just to do a waterborne finish. So I left it alone, and I didn't do it. And yeah, I was still using lacquer. I'm really not down with the lacquer thing just because of the things that I've seen with it. But I really wanted to do it. And eventually, by the time I'd made the first one of the guitars that you see now, I had just gotten a Stuart McDonald catalog and I was just looking through it. I hadn't had one in years. I was looking through it, and there was this water-based finish called General Finishes. And I was like, well, there it is. And it was all in one can. Now, I don't know if you guys had ever seen the original stuff that Stuart McDonald was selling years ago, but it took all these different things to mix together to make it work.
Yep.
This was just, you put it in your gun. If you wanted to add water to it, you could, and you shoot it. And that's it. I was like, wow. Times have changed. So I was going to buy it, and I went online, and I started asking about it. And Doug from Cower chimed in right away. He goes, don't get it. It doesn't work. It shrinks up, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, man, no advancement. Well, I bought it anyway. I bought it, and I watered it down myself, and it only comes clear. So you can't get all these colors and all of that. So I wind up mixing my own colors. But I got it, and it took me a couple of times, and I figured it out. There is a trick to it. It absolutely works. Mm-hmm. And there's a trick to it. And, I've been using it since I first got it. It's easy to repair. It's very strong. It's not like, you see these guitars from the 80s that have this polyurethane on it. It's like caked on there, right, like a half an inch thick. So it's nothing like that. It works just like lacquer. You can spray it like lacquer. You can add water-based tones to it. If you like, which is what I do, I'll let this out. If you like, you can buy chalk paints, and you can mix them to get colors you want. And you can mix that in and, with the clear and shoot that. There's just so many different ways to use it. It's really friendly. You can spray lacquers and enamels over it. Mm-hmm. I've done all kinds of stuff with it, and it's really, really safe. It's really safe. I have a spray booth. It has a little filter on it, and I still use it. And I absolutely love this stuff. And I probably won't use anything else. I've found a way to get any color and any kind of burst and stain that so far anybody's ever asked me for.
That's great, man.
Well, it seems like even the automotive industry is moving that direction. I had some body work done a couple years ago, and this company does primarily Japanese cars. But he said, yep, we just put in this new system. It's all... we use water-based lacquer, and I was a little scared at first, but I tell you what, I couldn't tell. Yeah,
it's there. They've gotten it there. It works great. I've got no complaints about it, and I try and help as many people as possible because people routinely will contact me and ask me what kind of paint I'm using or what stain or what gun I'm shooting out of, and I always tell them. And I've had people come back and say, okay. They know that I'll use water-based. It's okay, what did you use on this one? Was this water-based? I'm like, yeah, it's all water-based. That's all I'm using. It's water-based. And the thing is so I've had people say, well, can you show me how to use this? And they'll use it, and they'll come back, and they'll have one of those typical problems that I experienced when I first started. I said, you just got to be patient with it. Try this, do that. And, some of them come back, and they finally have really nice finishes, and some of them are still working it out. But I look at it like this. I believe that people who spray lacquer have had to go through the same thing. It's just that tradition that has kept us in the same spot using it. And, us guitar players believe, we got these ideas about, well, no, if it's not this wood, it's not 20 years old and came off of this tree, you can't use it or whatever. I had to let all that go too and just try something different with pretty much everything. And that includes woods because... Yeah. For woods, I was using woods that nobody else was going near when I first started. I was using a lot of Douglas fir.
Wow.
And, a lot of it. It was the majority of my guitars were Douglas fir. And then I got lucky with this aircraft poplar, which is just the most incredible wood. And unfortunately, it's just not, you can't get any more of it. I've gotten as much of it as I can get.
Yeah.
But it's just incredible wood. It's super tonal. It's strong. It's not really heavy. It's great wood. And, you know, most of my guitars are made out of poplar and Douglas fir. And they average at about 6, maybe 6.5 pounds.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And yeah, the one thing I had to do, like when I did the bridge, when the bridge was designed, the footprint, the stud that the screws go in to hold the bridge was just a little too small. So over time, that stud would dig into that fir and it would slightly lean forward a little bit. So I had to design a new stud that's a lot bigger and shaped different for that. But that solved that problem, and it definitely, you get the tone of the wood, the body, and everything from it. So, you know, it's taken a while to get all these little things together, but they all just kind of are in harmony with each other.
Well, speaking of harmony, on our way out of this interview, I want to call attention to my personal favorite guitar that you built. I worked in a vintage Porsche restoration shop for a couple of years, specifically working on 356 Porsches. And,
Wow.
And we also had some racing Porsches and 2 Spiders in there.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think you might know which one I'm going for. The one based inspired by Shinya Kimura.
Oh, Team 80.
Oh
That's
my
Team
gosh! All right, everybody, get to his Instagram, and you're gonna have to scroll a while.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to scroll
it's
a
way
while.
down in the
but
mix,
I'm telling you, that is one of the coolest guitars I think I've ever seen. It like
you caught that
nailed
Porsche
it,
angle.
nailed
Yeah.
it. I mean. And it doesn't look like, you know, a Porsche in the sense of what we usually
No,
think
it
driving
just
around
has
on
the
a car.
vibe.
It
has the vibe. That's it.
raw features of a racing Porsche.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for. That's exactly right.
I absolutely love it. It is a stunning guitar. Well done.
Yeah, I still have that one.
Oh,
That's the one that I decided
that
to
is
keep.
incredible.
So if
You know-
somebody is interested in getting in touch with you to order a guitar or have a guitar made,
Good point, Tom.
how would they do that?
I always ask them to hit me through the site. Just go to the site and just hit the contact me and go from there, and we go from there.
What's a turnaround look like typically if somebody is expecting to do that?
Right now, it used to be 6 months. Right now, unfortunately, it's like around, it's close to a year now. I'm loaded with work right
awesome.
now. I'm trying to get it caught up.
Well worth
But
it,
I'm
though.
about it a year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A one-off amazing guitar. That's crazy.
And I love the fact that I mean, you're down to the point where you say even the strap is an important part of this instrument. You guys make your own straps too.
Yep. That's because I'm a junkie for those stingy straps. I call them stingy straps. You know, the old kind of Fender
shoulder
with the little. Yeah. I'm a junkie for those, and I'm like, even when you see the ones made, they're not the way that I want them. Like if you see those little aluminum things that the strap goes through on the pad,
Uh-huh.
I have to literally make those myself and send them to the guy that does the leather work. I said, no, it's got to be just like this. I want those little aluminum wraparounds that hold the strap in.
Nice.
I said, nah, I want the pad to be a certain diameter. Width and length and all that. So I gave him all the specs, and he's like, well, I don't know how to make the aluminum part. So I
can't
make the
stop
aluminum
looking at
parts and
this
send them to him.
This 80.
That's
oh
just,
my gosh.
I mean, I
Yeah.
have to. I mean, I have a lot of respect for builders like you that do have such attention to detail and insist on making their own bits and pieces as opposed to buying stuff
True.
off the shelf.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's
all
not that I
adds
don't
up.
have anything. I don't have anything against stuff, but I can't find my voice that way because it's everything that I buy winds up being a compromise.
Right.
Like, I want a control plate, but I want it to be wedge shape. Well, nobody makes a wedge shape one, so I just put this Telecaster plate on there.
Yeah.
Everything that I did just wound up being a compromise. I mean, all the way down to the knobs.
Yeah.
I have to resin cast my own knobs because I want the colors and the, it just, I don't know. I just never thought. Now, the one thing that a few people have pointed out, I don't know if you noticed, but for a long time, I was making my own cases too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you scroll all the way down, you'll see I was making the hard shell cases as well. Covering them, putting the linings in them and everything. I just had this idea, this vision in my head. There's like, and I just did that one.
You're not still doing that, are you?
I make them, yeah. Whenever somebody asks for a case, I'll make a case. I still do it. There's not much that I won't do if somebody asks, as far as like moving forward. Like if you look at the stuff that I used to do, so yeah, I used to do that, but I found that was too much work. Nah, if somebody says, well, I want your guitar, but I want that car, I want the whole experience. Well, okay, well, I'll do the case too. And I have to give some props to my wife. She helps with a lot of this. Like I taught her to do fretwork and stuff, and she's probably a better pickup winder than I am.
Wow.
Because I've seen her do stuff that I would not do. I remember when I was teaching her to wind pickups, and we were at this time. I have a CNC pickup winder now, but at this time I had one of the little Shatton machines.
Oh yeah, they don't
and
last
I had
forever.
I had the the Jason Lawler book pickup winder, the one that you build out of a book. I used that for a bunch of years, but I sold that to another guy on Instagram recently because I had too many pickup winders. But she started winding a pickup, and it got away from her. When it gets away from you, the wire goes everywhere, but it wasn't broken. I watched her undo this thing, untangle all of this 43 gauge wire, and get it back on track and finish the pickup.
Yep.
I would have never done that. I'd have cut that coil
Cut the wire off
from scratch. Yeah. And when I saw her do that, she has the patience that, I was like, there's no way I would have done that.
Gibson,
she had no problem. She wasn't stressed about, no problem, and just took care of it.
Yeah, Gibson has been known to splice around 5,000 winds in their early P90s in the 50s.
That's a lot of winds.
10,000 winds is
it's
total,
a whole pickup.
but around 5,000 you'll find, because I'll unwind I used to unwind a P90, and around 5,000 winds of unwinding, there it is. It's a splice.
Right.
But yeah, it's okay to do that, but
Must have been end of the spools.
Right.
I don't know. I'd have to ask John Gundry. He may know more about that, but the Shatton winders, I think I went through 3 of those before I finally realized I got to get something more industrial that lasts.
Those motors. Yeah,
and you said you had too many pickup winders. Man, you never have enough pickup winders.
Well, the one I got now is the one. It's that, I don't know if you've seen this, that CNC Concepts one from UK. It's a beautiful machine. If you haven't seen it, it's on my.
Kind of looks like a tattoo gun on a mount.
You know what? It kind of does a little bit, doesn't it? But what's so cool about it is, you can adjust the scatter on it. You can program the number of turns, the scatter, everything. It's hooked up to your computer. You just hit the button and walk away. It stops when it's supposed to, and it never breaks. So, I'm like, where was this at? And now they've designed one that does multiples, which, I don't need, but I'm like, wow. But it's a wonderful machine. It's that's the one I was kind of looking to get to. But I haven't forgot my roots as far as, my first one, which was a Lawler machine. I built it out of the Lawler book. And I sold it to a fellow Instagrammer just recently. But I've had that for over 20 years. And I just have this one and the Shatton one now. So, that's enough.
Well, speaking of 20 years, I think we could probably talk for another 20 years. I know we'd like to. And I'd definitely love to have you back on the show at some point in time, because
anytime.
This has been a thrill talking with you. We've all been just glued to the conversation, and I hope everyone who's listening is equally inspired and, just has enjoyed this as much as we have. It's great to know that there are people out there who are exercising their creativity in so many ways, and you are doing it in so many ways.
Man, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We are going to shift over to Jared once he gets his finger out of his nose to do the
Maybe we shouldn't do the video thing anymore.
We absolutely should do the video.
No, we can't. We can't. It wouldn't be. It would be so boring. It would take the magic out of it. Jared, you have a would you rather for us, yes?
Ladies and gentlemen, we came to one of our favorite parts of the show, as all of the parts are definitely our favorite parts. But this part is called
Mojo Jojo.
It's the mostest favorites.
Would you rather? This week's Would You Rather is brought to us by our good old executive producer friend, Rick Calhoun.
All right.
So you're walking down the street towards the gig with your bandmates, and you realize, oh man, you made a horrible mistake. You've left your favorite pick at your house, and you have no spares. You only have one pick in this situation.
Wow.
No, I mean, which is, I guess, okay. Your favorite pick was a 2.5 millimeter pick handmade from casing, and you can't imagine playing anything else. There's no guitar shop open near you, so you look to your bandmates for help. You look at Todd Lee, and you look at Tony Baloney, Tony Baloney, and you look at good old Rob, and you're like, hey man, you either get a 44 millimeter pick, 0.44 actually, or the bass player offers you up a 5.6 millimeter pick. Would you rather take the 0.44 millimeter pick,
Super thin.
which is it's barely there, it's a piece of paper, or would you take the 5.6 millimeter pick, which is
Huge.
a big plastic lump?
Yes. And just for the record, casing is a type of plastic. Or
Casein.
yes.
So
Okay.
you don't have your pick. Your two choices are an ultra thin one that Rob uses.
Yeah.
Or an
This
ultra-
sounds like a really trivial thing, by the way, but this is huge.
Or
this is a really big question.
An ultra thick one that like Stanley Clark would use.
Or a lot of like the progressive like prog rock guys are using huge, mega thick.
No,
Insane picks.
mega thick, huge is 1 to 2 millimeters.
Yeah.
Not 5. That's
No, that's
stupid.
but no, they're
no.
making that.
They're
That's
not.
like
No.
oh yeah.
Who are players
Half a
that are
centimeter
actually
thick.
using 5?
Oh yeah.
No
way
way.
bigger. You guys, I'm telling you, there's
I
an
believe
entire
they exist, but I just don't believe actual working musicians
Oh,
are
yeah.
using these.
Look, I'll while we're doing this, I'll pull it
Okay,
up for
you
you. I
pull it
mean,
up.
and
You pull it up.
they get even bigger than that. I mean, they're huge chunks.
That's crazy.
And they're
Are they
ultra
tapered
precision.
at all,
Yeah,
or-
well, it goes down almost like a diamond point. So it's for like a wider finger comfort grip. Anyways, so let's talk about that. It's like the whole thing. It's sort of like muscle memory. It's like getting a strap that isn't set to you and just said here it is, and it just throws you off in such a
Yeah.
huge way.
Yeah.
All right, Tony.
I'm not going to do either. I'll just use my fingers. I mean, if I don't have
That's
my pick,
that's not part of the deal. You got to pick one. You know how this game.
all right.
is.
Well, then I'll use the thin one and I'll stash it up higher in my finger playing.
Right, tuck it away.
Tuck it. But not to get off subject here, but a couple years ago, a friend of mine bought me a pick punch, and it's actual pick-shaped punch that you can punch like a credit card, or I have plastic that I use at the shop that I punch my scrap out with, and it makes a perfectly good pick. But if I have to choose between a super thin pick and a super thick pick, I'm going to have to go to the super thin, I guess. But I would probably cheat and stash it like a magician would with.
Yeah, I can get if you get close down to it, it's not going to flop around quite as much.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here, Rob.
Yep, Tony's right.
Okay, same thing.
That
You're on
simple.
my island.
And I would do the exact same thing. I usually use these tiny little picks anyways, and so just barely the tips protruding. So
Yeah.
So I would do this.
I
I
don't
would just
understand
tuck
how
it
you
way
use
up
those
in
little
there.
things. Oy.
It's practice. It's
That's the little jazz Tortex pick.
yeah. Love these. I've been using
No.
those for like 30 years. I guess.
Yeah. No, I say no to that. Jared, how about yourself?
I would take the super thin pick, fold that sucker in half, and use it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
Or
a legitimate
take the
option,
thick.
but it was still a. Yeah, you could use a thick and put it on a bench grinder.
There you go. Or just the concrete sidewalk.
Or the concrete sidewalk, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
it. We don't have a pick, but we got a bench grinder.
Right, I know.
Right.
I forgot my pick, but I do have my
Yes.
bench grinder in
I
the
got
back
that in
seat.
the
Oh, look,
goodness.
there happens to be a bench grinder here at this intersection.
That is hilarious. Michael, how about yourself?
I would actually go with the thick one. I've used really thick picks, and I've even tried those stone ones. I don't really like them. They're really thick, but they taper at the edges. But a thin one's just not in the cards for me.
Yeah.
I'd have to, it'd be hard, but I'd go with the thick one.
Yeah.
You can borrow my bench grinder.
Yeah.
Carries it everywhere he goes.
Well, yeah, I have to go with the thin one too, but then I think I'd have to play it up at the top of the triangle, as it were. So, where there's the big part. Yes. the big edge, not the tiny pointy edge. That is not why did you make us answer that question, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jared.
No, that was, yeah.
we that hurt. And this is if I'm correct, this may be the first time a guest has been on his or her own island.
Well, potentially. I mean,
Typically, I'm the only one
we don't
on
know what,
Tony Island.
Yeah.
But you're on Michael Island.
Well, that was a great question. Thank you, Rick Calhoun, for sending that. Tony, we got a couple people to thank, and then we're going to get ourselves out of here and say goodbye to our friend Michael.
Yes. So, Todd, at this point of the show, we do like to thank a special group of people. These are our executive producers.
That's right.
And, somebody might be saying, well, that sounds like fun. How can I become an executive producer? Well, you go to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs and check it out. There's a couple of different levels in which you can participate. Each level comes with its own bevy of thank you gifts, things like barefoot buttons and picks and stickers and T-shirts and keychains and all the good stuff.
All the good stuff. I just got some more. Never mind. I'll save that for next.
Save that for next time. But there's one thing more as an executive producer, in addition to all that great stuff. Rob, what is it?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
He beat me to it.
You sound exactly
Rob, that's
like
amazing.
Jared.
I've been
Because I
practicing.
say it.
You have a career in voiceover.
Jared's marking his territory.
All right.
Let's do this.
So without further
right.
ado, we'd all like to thank these executive producers. Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, Darren Gregory, Doug Christ, Michael Van Zant, Ken Sayers, Brian Robison, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Anthony Lathrop, John Anglin, Brad Partridge, John Esterly, Justin Jones, James White, Matt Hart, Bill Gola Guitars, Richard Kendall, Tig Harmon, John Jackson, Jason Roush, Gary Cooper, Mark Garton, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D, Trevor Gunberg, and welcome this week, Rick Calhoun.
All right.
Rick Calhoun.
With the zinger of the Would You Rather.
Yeah, the Would You Rather made us all cry.
Well, thanks very much,
was a
Tony.
big
I
one.
appreciate-
Wait, Todd.
Okay.
Todd. Every week, I have to remind you, there's a special group of executive producers.
Who are they?
They are our grand poobahs.
Yes.
They are very special.
I just got a bunch of new Grand Poobah stuff in there.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that
Okay, good.
because we have some shipping to do.
Yes, we do.
Our grand poobahs get a special fez to wear upon their head whilst listening to the podcast.
And at the same time.
And at the same time, they're interconnected. It's kind of like wearing tinfoil on your head.
That's right.
So special thanks to these grand poobahs. Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, David Kaminga, Sights of Sound. That's Science of Sound. Because I kind of cut out there a little bit. Cody Foster, Sean S. Tommy Manasco, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys, Tim Nowak, Tyler Rhines, James Pennington, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, Johnny Morales, Mal Sanders, Bob Crouch. And this week, we've got two new Grand Poobahs.
That's right.
Whoa.
So special welcome and special thanks to these brand spanking new Grand Poobahs.
Spankin' new.
Sam Jett and Michio Morikashi.
Hey, welcome.
Murakishi. It's
Or Morikishi.
Guys.
yeah.
More or less a Kishi.
Yes. We are so grateful to all of you, and thank you so very much for tolerating Tony. So, Michael, we need to remind the people one more time where they can find your guitars and go buy one.
You can find them at the cowbrand.com online, and you can also see a lot of my work on my Instagram, which is electro-stringed.
That's right.
Yeah, you can get to my Instagram through the website.
Outstanding. Marvel at those things. Let's see. Tony Baloney, where can people find you?
Well, let's just say you need a special pick guard for a special guitar. Mm-hmm. Go over to pickguardian.com. Check out some of the things that I have available for online purchase. But by and large, most of what I do is custom work. So shoot me an email. Let me know what you need. Give me a little time because I'm a little backed up right now. But every day is getting better.
I got a pill for that. Rob?
madcowamplification.com and on Instagram at madcowamplification.
Perfect. Go get your amp repaired and get amp advice and see all the awesome things that are going on with your repairs. Jared?
You can get a hold of me through Todd.
Yep, that's right. Because he does. You can't call his desk at Gibson.
Yeah, sorry.
If anything that you need to shout out to Jared, go ahead and send to me or Tony.
I'll give you his personal cell number.
Yeah, exactly.
I would still love to answer pickup questions, general pickup questions as well.
Yeah.
So I'm still open for that. So please send any questions you have to the Guitar Knobs podcast messaging system.
Sounds good. That messaging system is Todd at theguitarknobs.com. You can also DM me on Instagram, DM all of us. That is at Guitar Knobs. And we need to say a ginormous thank you to Michael King, Cowbrand Design, for...
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you shared so much of your time, and we really appreciated talking to you, man.
You bet. It's fun.
All right, everybody, have a great Guitar Week and subscribe!
Yeah.
Arg.
What am I supposed to say?
These two brutes are drinking Trulies, so, all right. Trulies. We won't tell anybody.
Got some gum or a gaffer tape or super glue?
This is where we got a little, what's it called?
Sponsorship.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's right.
I guess I need to get a little bit of water.
Of Todd's sentences. We're like a married couple.
That's
dangerous. You'll get hurt.
Not a toy.
Yes, it says so on that. He's got a bag on his head. He should leave it there, but it makes too much noise.
Make too much noise.
He was just thinking of dinosaur-shaped macaroni, and we went, you goofball.
Here we go.
Just figuring it out.
Yeah.
Your
He's
experience
the
with
master
that.
caster. Drink
Sure.
another Shasta. His voice sounds
But
good because it has
I'll
to.
save it for the show.
Cool.
Give me what do I say?
Give me
How about a little bit of
How
this?
about some of this?
Give me a piece of
Okay,
chicken.
Oh, no.
Let's redo this.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.